Actually, Ubel and Land are the strongest close combat mages. This is a fact personally confirmed by the first-class mage, Sense. In the latest manga storyline, Sense mentioned that although Ubel and Land are mages, they possess the same advantage as her when fighting against warriors. For mages, if a warrior gets close, they can be taken out instantly. So why do Ubel and Land share the same edge as Sense when facing warriors? Let's first look at Sense's ability. She can freely control her hair and inject magic to enhance its quality. Her hair can be used as mass-based weapons to break through defensive magic. In the Labyrinth exam, we saw her powerful mid-range combat advantage. Enemies couldn't get close, and her magic-infused hair couldn't be cut by weapons. In locations where large-scale area attacks can't be used, Sense's ability is practically invincible. Whether in labyrinths or castles, these places are basically her home turf. And what about Ubel? She's warlike, frequently engages in fights, and is bloodthirsty. Her intuition is scarily accurate. She can even predict moves before they happen. Her real Sidon has killed many humans, so she can definitely visualize what it's like to slash a person. Against humans who can't use defensive magic, it's a deadly spell. Not to mention she's learned Sorganile, which is a 100% control skill against warriors with low magic power. As for Land, he specializes in clone magic. He uses clones to stall enemies and analyze their abilities. Unless he's absolutely sure he can win, his real body won't show up. Or maybe what shows up isn't even the real one in the first place. By the time the enemy has fought a few rounds with Land, their magic and stamina depleted, the real Land can easily finish them off. So here's another thing Ubel and Land have in common. They're pretty much a match made in heaven. Why were Fern and Stark so scared during their first real battle? Was it because they were facing demons straight out of fairy tales? Yes, exactly. Look at who they were up against. Elder Sage of Corruption Qual and one of Aura the Seven Sages of Destruction's subordinates. You could say that Fern and Stark as newcomers encountered elite enemies right from the start. Practically mini-bosses or even chapter bosses. Anyone who says they weren't scared would be lying. But another important reason comes from Frieren and Eisen. Why do I say that? Frieren is humanity's last great mage, having achieved the incredible feat of defeating the Demon King alongside the hero's party. Eisen is humanity's strongest warrior, who also helped bring down the Demon King. So naturally, the training they put their apprentices through was extremely intense. Frieren trained Fern by attacking her from all kinds of tricky angles and overwhelming her with magical barrages, all to sharpen Fern's reflexes, practical skills, and experience. Every training session left Fern completely drained of magic. And Eisen? He often beat Stark so badly he couldn't even stand. Eisen was like an insurmountable mountain to Stark. That's also why Stark was so terrified when he faced Linny, who mimicked Eisen's fighting style. But Linny was only imitating. She could never match the real power. Once Stark realized Linny's attacks were weak and lacked force, he defeated her instantly. So Fern and Stark weren't scared of their enemies themselves. They were afraid because they thought their opponents would be as strong as their masters. But it turned out the demons they faced were nowhere near as powerful as Frieren and Eisen. In fact, the intensity of Fern and Stark's daily training was even tougher than fighting those demons. The manga is finally updated. How did Ubel and Land manage to escape danger? Spoiler alert. At the end of the previous chapter, Ubel and Land were cornered by shadow warriors with weapons right at their throats. The quick-reacting Land cast a spell that produces an electric shock, interrupting the enemies about to attack both Ubel and himself, and successfully created distance between them and the foes. Then, Ubel faced off against Iris while Land fought Routine. The first fight shown was between Ubel and Routine. Through combat, Routine analyzed that Ubel's magic couldn't cut through shields or armor, a weakness, and used a shield for defense. On the other side, Land, last time, most viewers thought Land was a clone. Your guesses were correct. The current Land is indeed a clone. In his battle against Iris, he still used the clone as bait, luring the opponent into making a mistake so the real body could seize the chance to strike. However, Iris's body can withstand electric shocks, rendering Land's specialty magic ineffective. Meanwhile, Ubel's opponent wielded a shield, which couldn't be identified as part of the body, so Sorganale couldn't be activated. And Land's opponent saw through his tactics, plus their physical durability is extremely high, able to endure Land's magical attacks. But Ubel has also grasped key intel. The enemy can't use magic perception. Their only way of observation is through their naked eyes? So how will they secure victory? I think Ubel and Land could instantly swap opponents. Ubel could turn around and use Sorganale to control Iris, who has no cover. Then they could create smoke to obstruct Routine's vision, or directly attack Routine's eyes to limit their sight. After that, while controlling Iris, Ubel could use magic perception to detect Routine's position and launch an attack. What do you think of this strategy, or do you have a better idea? Let me know in the comments. Do you know what Stark was up to during the magic exam? He's the one who resembles Himmel the most. While Frieren and Fern were taking the first-class mage exam, Stark finally got to experience life on his own. He could stay up all night, even sleep straight until evening, without getting scolded by Fern. But after Fern caught him, Stark honestly admitted he'd secretly secretly drunk a whole bottle of juice in the middle of the night. And that wasn't all. What Stark does most often, even on ordinary journeys, is training and helping others. During those days, while training in the forest, he often received guidance from a seemingly highly skilled old man. When Frieren asked about it, it turned out Stark didn't even know him. Later, with Fern's permission, he was recruited by Werble for a monster clearing mission. Not just that, all this time he'd also been helping the local residents. So when Frieren and Fern finished the exam and were about to leave, that old man, along with other villagers, even the children, came to see Stark off. They all liked him so much and were truly reluctant to see him go. And when Fern remarked, "Stark is popular wherever he goes," it reminded us that he often helps people and solves problems even when Frieren and Fern aren't watching. This behavior is exactly like Himmel's, always helping others, taking on requests, and earning respect. No wonder he's a boy who grew up listening to the hero's tales. He's truly inherited Himmel's will of lending a hand to those in need. Do you know what flower Ciri was looking at while crouching down there? All those flowers in the room. But in Ciria's eyes, only one truly mattered. Look closely at her perspective as she crouches, gaze angled downward. She's focused precisely on those white flowers in the front row. Why these? Rewind through the anime. Only two characters deeply loved flowers. Himmel, who adored the Lunaria, moongrass, and Flam, who cherished the spell to produce a field of flowers. Now pay attention to the flowers surrounding Flam's grave, planted by Frieren. Yes, those white blooms match exactly the ones Ciri is gazing upon. This white flower symbolizes Flamma. After learning of Flam's death during her walk with Frieren, Ciri recalls a memory, young Flam's joyful reaction upon seeing white flowers. The white blossoms along their path mirror the ones young Flam held, all echoes of Ciria's memories. Later, when Flam stands alone at the cliff's edge, white flowers spread at her feet. This signifies Flam leaving before her master and her disciple. Ciri remembers it all. She planted those white flowers closest to the path, so every time she passes through her garden, she sees them and thinks of her beloved pupil, Flam. When Ciri rises and asks Frieren her favorite spell, Frieren answers again, spell to produce a field of flowers. At that moment, the camera cuts to the white flowers, and Ciri glances down at those blooms representing Flam. To Ciri, that entire garden of flowers, it all fades away except that one white bloom. It means, among all her students, Flam was her most cherished. So, do you believe this white flower truly represents Flam? Share your thoughts in the comments. Could Frieren be controlled by Sorganile? To answer that, we need to understand how Sorganile works. It's a spell of binding that activates as long as the entire target's body is visible. Once hit, the target can't move or use magic. But Sorganile has a weakness. It won't trigger unless the caster has full visual coverage. When Ubel fought her clone, simply kicking up dust was enough to block it. However, if you do get bound, no movement, no magic, you're a sitting duck. Frieren, though, has countless spells up her sleeve. Take that magic Frieren's clone used to send Fern flying. Fern didn't even sense any mana. Spells like that, ones with no detectable mana surge, wouldn't be restricted by Sorganile's magic lock effect. So even if bound, Frieren could bypass the spell using alternative methods. Plus, Mythode stated, spell of binding doesn't work on opponents with vastly superior mana. Frieren's mana reserves are colossal. Compared to current users like Werble and Ubel, their mana is dwarfed by hers. Frieren herself has also confirmed resistance to binding spells and mental control magic. Bottom line, Sorganile wouldn't affect Frieren, but just because it fails against her doesn't mean it's weak. Spell of binding remains extremely powerful in modern mage battles. It forces constant pressure. If your opponent slips up even once, they're bound. Then, a single basic attack spell ends the fight. So, do you think Sorganile is the strongest combat magic? Drop your take in the comments.